welcome to my channel. I'm Tiffany, a retired librarian turned homeschool mom, and in this video we're going to be looking at Addy's short stories. So I have one physical copy here. This is Addy Studies Freedom, and this story, I'm trying to think, it's kind of earlier on. It's right after the war ends. This is Abraham Lincoln dies, and a lot of them are afraid the war is going to start, slavery is going to start again. But it's mainly about them learning that all because they're no longer slave doesn't mean they're equal. They still can't ride on the streetcars. Everything is still separate. It's still different. And they end up, her and her dad go to see Lincoln's his corpse, essentially, and his casket, and they have to wait in line. And there's issues because people are waiting for a long time. And an white man helps Addy when there's a fight because she falls down. She gets away from her dad. And again, her brother and her sister are not with them yet, so it's just the three of them. And I don't know if they're in the boarding house yet. But nonetheless, it's learning that all because slavery has been abolished doesn't mean things are free. So that's the basics of Addy studying what freedom means. So, and then the next story, I'm actually going to jump into my, is Addy's wedding quilt. So in this story, Addy's parents are getting legally married. So if you're familiar with slavery, yes, they would get married, but they would jump over a broomstick. But it wasn't recognized by their masters, so they could still obviously be separated. So a lot of former slaves, once slavery was over, they wanted to get married in the church. And Harriet's making fun of them, making fun of her, but because again, it's like she's implying that Addy's parents were never really married, and she gets told off by their teacher because again, Harriet does not understand what it means to be slavery. And Harriet comments like, why slavery's over, why do we keep having to talk about it? And her teacher's like, it's important and people are still suffering, that's why. So, but Addy is making a quilt for her parents, and for basically a wedding quilt. And it's very much talking about how Addy wants to jump the broomstick when she gets married, why her parents are getting legally married. And she's appliques, which are things that you sew on to quilts that are images. And Addy chooses a broomstick to represent her family. And a lot of the clothing, the fabric that she has is coming from old clothing, which would have been common. Clothing that had belonged to Auntie Lula and Uncle Solomon, because of course they had passed, and various other bits and pieces. So that's kind of the story. It's about her learning about her family's story. And that's what the quilt represents. It's like, this is her parents' story. And then she's going to, I think, she's going to add something to the quilt. I can't remember what exactly it was. Whether it was rings or something, or maybe it was like the church bells, to represent her parents getting legally married. So that's what this short story is about. The next one is Addy's little brother. So this is kind of a cute story. Sarah's cousin, who's about 12, comes to stay with them because their family had been living in Canada. And Addy gets jealous of him because her brother Sam is paying more attention to him, and how apparently he wanted a little brother. So you're dealing with, and then she starts getting irritated with her little sister Esther and because Esther's trying to follow her around and she doesn't like it, and it's difficult. So it's definitely learning about the sibling rivalries that are going on within the family, and how Addy learns that no, her brother still loves her. Um, it's just sometimes it's different, and he wouldn't trade her for anybody. So, and how she needs to kind of accept her little sister. So that's what's going on in this story. So then we move on to high hopes for Addy. So in this story, her parents start talking about them moving to an apartment, but then there won't be any extra money. And her teacher recommends her to go to high school, which is basically it's a teacher's college. Her and Harriet, but it costs money. So she doesn't want to do it because she doesn't want to, because in her mind, her family can't afford it. But near the end of the story, her parents announce that they don't plan to, that they're going to wait a while to move out because their daughter's gotten into this. It's a prestigious school for African Americans. It's one of the first colleges. And her parent, when she's like, how did you find out? It's like, Esther found the letter from your teacher in the trash and gave it to us. And it's like, why didn't you tell us? She says, because we couldn't afford it. And they're like, we can do anything with that, how proud they are of her. So that's, so she gets into the teacher's college, which is essentially it's high school. So, and then the last one is kind of an interesting story. So this is Addy's summer palace. Her father's been working on a hotel on I believe it's Philadelphia's version of Coney Island. So, and her mother and Esther go to stay with her father, and he's been trapping rabbits because again they're still poor. But things have been stolen, and Addy realized it's being stolen by a little white girl, and it's kind of a recognition that they're poor too, and that it's hard, and despite the fact that this girl is snobbish, and Addy has to kind of learn that as she gets older, unfortunately she has a place, and unfortunately whites are above her, but she can still play and imagine, and it's kind of an interesting story. I'm actually gonna, but I'm gonna skim through this. Addy tries to be nice to her. But she actually, she gets to enjoy the water and understanding that she can help this girl understand that Addy's not the enemy. Because even a lot of the times that people, the poorer whites in Philadelphia, similar to poor whites now, are afraid that the slaves are coming to take their jobs away when they're not. And it's essentially, it's touching on how the white upper class use the white lower class and convince them that they're better than the blacks, even though they're both being oppressed by the same system. So because of course the upper class know that if the poor blacks and the poor whites realize, wait a minute, we're being treated the same, really, there's trouble. So, but Addy kind of touches on how she, just as a person, can show this white girl that, no, I'm not your enemy. I'm not here to hurt you. So that is it with Addy's short stories. I will move on. She has one mystery, kind of like Kirsten. And then she has, I do believe, She has a few other things. We have the craft book. We have the cookbook. She has her theater kit. I don't think she has a clothing thing. I'll have to look into that. But we will be covering the rest of Addy's stories. And then we'll move on to Samantha. We're going from a very poor little black girl to a very, very rich little white girl. But that is the way the timing works. So I will see you next time. And again, like and subscribe. Thank you.